Have you ever truly seen the person who mops the floors in your office, the one who stands guard at the door while you rush past, your mind already on the day ahead? Have you ever stopped to wonder what stories are locked behind their quiet eyes, what strength lies dormant in their calloused hands? We build our lives in towers of glass and steel, surrounded by people we see but never know, labeling them by their function, not their potential. We see a janitor, a guard, a clerk. We don't see the warrior, the artist, the genius. But sometimes, in a moment of shattering crisis, the labels burn away, and the truth of a person is revealed with the force of a lightning strike. This is a story about one such moment. It's about Anya Petrova, a woman who wore the uniform of invisibility, a ghost haunting the corridors of power, until the day a sniper's bullet demanded she show the world who she truly was. Anya worked the night shift at Thorne Industries, a global tech monolith housed in a skyscraper that scraped the clouds. Her official title was security officer, but in the sterile, silent hours before dawn, her role felt more like that of a phantom. She checked locks that were never unlocked, monitored cameras that watched empty hallways, and walked a patrol route so ingrained in her muscle memory she could do it with her eyes closed. She was part of the building's machinery, as unnoticed and as functional as the air conditioning system humming deep in the basement. Her gray uniform was a cloak of anonymity, her face, often partially obscured by the brim of her cap, was pleasant but forgettable. To the handful of late-working executives and cleaning crew she encountered, she was just the night guard, a polite nod in a silent hallway. But beneath the placid surface, a different person lived and breathed. When Anya looked at the gleaming glass atrium, she didn't see architectural beauty, she saw a fatal funnel, a kill zone with no cover. When she rode the elevator to the 80th floor executive suites, she wasn't admiring the view, she was mapping sight lines, identifying potential sniper nests in the surrounding buildings, calculating angles of entry and exit. Her mind was a constant, whirring engine of tactical assessment, a ghost of a life she had tried to bury. The instincts were branded into her soul, forged in the dust of Kandahar, and the salt spray of the Arabian Sea. They were a part of her she could no more shed than her own shadow. It was a language she no longer spoke, but one she could never, ever forget. The building was buzzing with an unfamiliar energy. Daylight brought with it a frantic, high-stakes tension. Today was the launch of Helios, a revolutionary energy project that Mr. Harrison Thorne, the company's brilliant and perpetually stressed CEO, had staked his entire legacy on. Thorne was a man Anya only ever saw as a fleeting figure behind the tinted glass of his penthouse office, or the back of his chauffeured car. He was less a person and more a concept, a center of gravity around which the entire corporate universe revolved. The security detail was tripled for the event. Mark Renshaw, the head of security, swaggered through the morning briefing, his chest puffed out with self-importance. Renshaw was a man who loved the idea of security more than its practical application. He was a creature of binders and protocols, a former desk sergeant who believed every threat could be neutralized with a color-coded checklist. He saw Anya standing in the back, her posture relaxed but alert, and a smirk touched his lips. "Petrova," he called out, his voice unnecessarily loud. "Your post is the service entrance, basement level 2. Just make sure no one props the door open for a smoke break. Think you can handle that?" A few of the other guards chuckled. Anya's face remained impassive. "Yes, sir," she said, her voice flat. Her eyes, however, were not on him. They were scanning the faces of the new temp guards, noting their ill-fitting uniforms, their bored expressions, their soft bodies. They were scenery, not security. Later, while doing a preliminary sweep, she noticed it. A dark green maintenance van, parked across the street. It had been there for 3 hours, unmoved. Too clean for a contractor's vehicle, no company logo. She also noted a window washing rig on the adjacent building, stationary for the last 40 minutes, a single figure barely visible against the sun's glare. She found Renshaw in the command center, staring proudly at a bank of monitors showing green, secure icons. "Sir," Anya began, "there's a van on the east-facing street." Renshaw cut her off without even looking at her. "It's been cleared. It's part of the catering logistics. It's in the binder." He tapped a thick, 3-ring binder on the console as if it were a holy text. And I saw a stationary window washer on the Kenson Tower, she pressed gently. The angle gives them a clear line of sight to the 80th floor boardroom. Renshaw finally turned, his face a mask of patronizing annoyance. Petrova, with all due respect, you're a night guard. Your job is to watch for unlocked doors, not play international spy. We have a multi-million-dollar security system, and a team of professionals vetted by me. Let us handle the big picture. Just go to your post. His dismissal was absolute. Anya held his gaze for a second longer, a storm gathering behind her calm expression. But she simply nodded. Yes, sir. She walked away, the cold feeling in her gut intensifying with every step. The professionals were in charge. And they were all blind. The presentation was in full swing. On the 80th floor, in a boardroom that felt like it was suspended in the sky, Harrison Thorne stood at a sleek podium, his voice resonating with passion. He spoke of Helios as the future, a new dawn for clean energy. Behind him, a floor-to-ceiling window framed a panoramic view of the city, a breathtaking backdrop for a history-making announcement. The room was filled with investors, journalists, and executives, all hanging on his every word. They were so captivated by the vision he was painting that no one noticed the tiny, fleeting glint of light from the building across the way. No one but Anya, who had abandoned her post in the basement, and was now monitoring the public camera feeds on a tablet in a quiet stairwell, her heart pounding a slow, heavy drumbeat against her ribs. She saw the glint, and her blood ran cold. She was already moving before the sound reached her. A deafening crack, like the sky itself splitting open, echoed through the boardroom. It was followed by the explosive sound of shattering, spiderwebbing glass. A fist-sized hole appeared in the window directly behind Thorne's head, exactly where his skull had been a microsecond before he had turned to gesture at the screen. A vapor trail hung in the air. For a single, eternal second, the entire room froze in suspended animation. Then, chaos erupted. People screamed, ducking under the mahogany table, scrambling for the doors. It was a stampede of expensive suits and raw primal fear. Renshaw's voice squawked over the security comms, a frantic, high-pitched mess of conflicting orders. Code red. Lock down the floor. No, evacuate. Evacuate. His professionals, the well-paid guards stationed by the door, were just as useless. One fumbled with his radio, dropping it. The other simply stood there, his mouth agape, his eyes wide with disbelief. They were following a script for a fire drill, not the brutal, bloody reality of a sniper attack. Their training had failed them. Their leader had failed them. And high above the city, a killer was already recalibrating, chambering a second round, preparing to finish the job. Harrison Thorne was the only one who hadn't moved. He stood by the podium, his hand pressed against the side of his head where the supersonic shockwave of the bullet had passed, his face pale with shock. He was a statue, a perfect, unmoving target. The world had dissolved into a cacophony of noise and terror. While the world dissolved into panic, Anya's mind became a place of absolute, crystalline silence. The chaos didn't touch her. The screams were distant data points. The shattering glass was an acoustic signature. Her training, buried under years of quiet routine, erupted to the surface, not as a memory but as pure, unthinking instinct. The sound of the shot, the caliber, the concussive force, the trajectory calculated from the entry point in the glass, it all processed in her mind in the space of a heartbeat. She knew the weapon was a 338 Lapua Magnum, fired from approximately 800 meters. She knew the shooter was in the Kenson Tower, just as she had suspected. She knew they had less than 10 seconds before the next round arrived. Time didn't slow down, it warped, stretching to accommodate the flood of information her senses were absorbing. She saw the panicked executives trampling each other. She saw Renshaw's men frozen in uselessness. And she saw Harrison Thorne, standing alone in the kill zone, his back to the compromised window, a ghost waiting for his own death. The sight broke through her disciplined calm with a surge of protective fury. This was her sector. These were her people. Not on her watch. She moved. She didn't run, she flowed through the chaos, her movements economical and precise. She shoved a frantic journalist out of her path, not with anger, but with the focused energy of a charging bull. Get down, her voice cut through the din, a blade of pure command. Stay away from the windows. Now. She reached the podium just as Thorne was beginning to sway, his eyes unfocused. She didn't ask. She didn't explain. She acted. With a full body check that would have flattened a linebacker, she slammed into Harrison Thorne, driving him off his feet, and down behind the heavy, solid marble podium. A split second later, a second shot tore through the air where he had been standing, pulverizing a chunk of the wall, and sending a shower of plaster and dust over their heads. The sniper had corrected their aim. And they had just missed. From the floor, Renshaw, who had managed to crawl under the main table, shrieked at her, his face red with a mixture of terror and outrage. Petrova. What in God's name do you think you're doing? You're a guard. You assaulted Mr. Thorne. You're fired. Anya ignored the sputtering rage. Her entire focus was on the man huddled beside her, the CEO of the world's most powerful tech company, who was now gasping for air, his billion-dollar suit covered in dust. She grabbed the front of his shirt, forcing him to look at her. Her face was inches from his. Sir, she said, her voice low, steady, and devoid of any panic. It was a voice he had never heard before, a voice that carried an impossible weight of authority. My name is Anya Petrova. The person trying to kill you is a professional. They have this room zeroed in. Your security team is compromised. You will listen to me, and you will do exactly as I say. Stay with me if you want to live. For the first time, Harrison Thorne truly saw the woman in the cheap security uniform. He didn't see a low-level employee. He saw the fierce, unwavering certainty in her eyes. He saw the complete absence of fear. He saw a warrior. In that moment, the corporate hierarchy, the titles, the org charts, they all evaporated. There was only the protector and the protected. He looked from her steel-hard eyes to the sputtering, terrified face of his head of security, a man he paid a fortune to prevent this very scenario. The choice was not a choice at all. He gave Anya a short, sharp nod. Trust, absolute and unconditional, passed between them. A silent contract was signed in the shadow of death. Anya's mind was already 3 steps ahead. She scanned the room, not as a room, but as a tactical problem. The main doors were a death trap, covered by the sniper. The windows were a no-go zone. They were pinned down. But on her nightly rounds, she hadn't just been checking locks. She had been studying the building's bones. She remembered seeing a faint outline on the wall behind a large, decorative ficus plant. It was a ghost in the architectural plans, a sealed-off access point to a vertical service corridor that ran the height of the building. It was their only way out. We need to move. Now, Anya stated, her voice cutting through the whimpers of the few executives huddled nearby. She pointed toward the decorative wall panel. There's a service chase behind that wall. It's our only way out that isn't exposed. Renshaw, still trying to salvage his shattered authority, crawled toward them. That's insane. We wait for SWAT. That's the protocol. His voice cracked with desperation. He was clinging to his binder, to his rules, because without them, he was nothing. Anya turned her head slowly, her gaze fixing him with an intensity that made him flinch. SWAT will take at least 5 minutes to breach the lobby, and another 3 to get to this floor. That's 8 minutes. The shooter has our position. They'll switch to armor-piercing rounds and chew through this podium in 2. We'll be dead long before your protocol arrives. Her logic was brutal and undeniable. She didn't wait for an argument. She grabbed a heavy, polished steel fire extinguisher from the wall mount. With a grunt of effort, she swung it like a battering ram, smashing it into the lock mechanism of the decorative panel. The sound of splintering wood and screeching metal filled the air. On the third strike, the panel gave way, swinging inward to reveal a dark, narrow, and uninviting chasm filled with pipes and wiring. It smelled of dust and concrete. It was their salvation. "Go," she commanded, pushing Thorn toward the opening. "Move fast and stay low." Thorn didn't hesitate. He scrambled into the darkness. A few other terrified executives followed his lead. Renshaw stood frozen, his face a canvas of disbelief and fury. He couldn't comprehend what was happening. A night guard had dismantled his authority and his entire worldview in less than 90 seconds. Anya grabbed his arm, her grip like a vice. "You can stay here and die by the book, or you can get in there and live," she hissed. The stark choice finally broke through his paralysis. With a pathetic whimper, he scrambled into the service corridor after the others. Anya was the last one in, pulling the broken panel partially shut behind them, plunging them into near-total darkness. They were in the guts of the machine, a world away from the sunlit luxury of the boardroom. The service corridor was a vertical maze of steel and concrete. The only light came from thin slivers filtering through ventilation grates. The air was thick with the hum of the building's life support systems. Anya took the lead, her hand resting lightly on Thorn's shoulder to guide him. Her senses were on fire. She could feel the vibrations through the soles of her shoes, could hear the faint whisper of air currents. This was her element. The darkness and confinement that terrified the others were a comfort to her. It was a terrain she understood. "Stay close to the wall," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum. "Single file." No noise. They moved downward, their descent punctuated by the terrified, ragged breathing of the executives. Suddenly, a deafening report echoed from above, much closer this time. A heavy caliber round ripped through the concrete wall of the corridor just feet above their heads, showering them with dust and debris. One of the executives screamed, a sound that was quickly muffled. "They're on the move," Anya said, her voice impossibly calm. "They know we're in the walls. They're trying to bracket our position." She held up a hand, stopping the group. She peered into the darkness ahead, using the faint reflection off a large copper pipe to see around the next bend. It was a classic flanking maneuver. She was leading them through a gauntlet, hunted by an unseen predator. Thorn, a man used to controlling every variable, was now completely dependent on the instincts of the woman in front of him. He watched in silent awe as she navigated the treacherous space. She moved with a fluid grace that defied the bulky uniform, her body a coiled spring of potential energy. She wasn't just escaping, she was thinking, analyzing, countering. She would have them press against one wall, then seconds later, a volley of shots would pepper the opposite side. She was reading the hunter, anticipating their moves with uncanny precision. He was witnessing a master at work. This wasn't a security guard. This was something else entirely. This was pure, undiluted competence, a level of skill he had only ever seen in the most elite surgeons or engineers. And it was housed in the body of a woman he wouldn't have given a second glance just an hour ago. The thought was both humbling and profoundly unsettling. They finally emerged into the relative safety of a sub-level maintenance floor, a cavernous space filled with humming generators and HVAC units. They were grimy, shaken but alive. The immediate threat seemed to have passed. As soon as they were in the brightly lit room, Renshaw's bravado returned, a desperate attempt to reclaim his lost status. He straightened his disheveled suit and puffed out his chest. "Okay, everyone stay calm," he announced loudly, as if he had been in charge all along. "I've got it from here. I'm initiating lockdown protocol." Delta. Anya, who was checking the perimeter of the room, turned to face him. Her expression was cold, her eyes burning with a contempt she no longer bothered to hide. "You've got it," she repeated, her voice dripping with scorn. "The threat is still in the area, likely trying to find a new firing position or breach the building. Your protocols are worthless. You saw a van and dismissed it. You saw a sniper's nest and ignored it. You had a dozen armed guards who froze when it mattered. You don't got anything but a spectacular failure on your record." The brutal, public takedown left Renshaw speechless, his face turning a blotchy red. The remaining executives stared, their allegiance shifting visibly from the disgraced security chief to the quiet guard who had saved their lives. It was in that tense, charged silence that Harrison Thorne stepped forward. He looked directly at Anya, his gaze filled with a deep, searching curiosity. All the pretense was gone. He needed to know. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice quiet but carrying across the large room. "Not your name. Who are you?" Anya's jaw tightened. For a moment, the mask of the warrior slipped, and Thorne saw a flash of something else in her eyes, a deep, profound pain, a ghost of a memory she fought to keep chained. She looked away, toward the cold concrete wall, as if seeing a past she could never outrun. When she finally looked back at him, her voice was barely a whisper, but every word landed with the force of a physical blow. "I was a sniper. United States Navy. Special Warfare Operator First Class. SEAL Team 3". The revelation hung in the air, stunning the room into absolute silence. Renshaw's jaw dropped. A SEAL. The quiet night guard who he'd mocked and belittled was a member of the most elite fighting force on the planet. The absurdity and the irony of it were crushing. He had told a Navy SEAL to go watch a basement door. Before anyone could process the information, a new sound cut through the hum of the machinery, the distinct, metallic click of a fire door being forced open on the far side of the room. The hunter had followed them. They weren't safe. The attacker was inside the building now, moving from a sniper role to an assault role. Anya's head snapped toward the sound. The brief moment of vulnerability was gone, replaced by an even harder, more resolute focus. She was no longer just a protector, she was on her home turf. "They're here," she said, her voice flat and final. "We can't hide." A predatory gleam entered her eyes. A faint, cold smile touched her lips. "SEALs don't hide. We hunt." Without a word, she strode over to Renshaw. Before he could react, she smoothly and efficiently unholstered the Glock from his hip. He was too shocked to even protest. She checked the magazine, chambered a round, and tested the weight of the weapon in her hand. It felt like an extension of her own body. "Mr. Thorne," she said, her attention now fully on the CEO. "Your security system. I need a CEO-level override. Can you trigger the fire suppression system in Sector Gamma 7 on my command?" Thorne, without hesitation, pulled out his phone. "I can." "Good," Anya said. "You're going to create a diversion. On my signal, you flood that sector. It will draw their attention. I'll use the maintenance crawlspace to flank them." She was not asking for permission. She was giving orders, orchestrating the battlefield that this concrete room had become. She knew every inch of this building, every camera blind spot, every hidden passage. The attacker had stepped out of the sky and into her web. The climax was not a prolonged firefight. It was a testament to brutal efficiency. Thorne activated the sprinklers. A hiss and a spray of water erupted in the far corner, creating the perfect distraction. The intruder, clad in black tactical gear, pivoted toward the noise, raising their rifle. In that exact moment, Anya emerged from a shadowy alcove behind them. She moved in total silence. There were 3 swift, precise movements. The first disarmed the attacker, sending the rifle clattering to the floor. The second was a strike to the throat. The third brought the intruder to their knees, gasping, with the barrel of her pistol pressed firmly against the back of their head. It was over in less than 3 seconds. The fight had ended before the enemy even knew it had begun. She stood over the neutralized threat, her breathing even, her stance perfect. She had fired back, faster and smarter, turning their own aggression against them. When the heavily armed SWAT teams finally stormed the maintenance level, they found a scene that defied all their expectations. The corporate CEO, Harrison Thorne, stood calmly by a control panel. His disgraced head of security was slumped against a wall, looking utterly broken. The intruder was on the floor, conscious but incapacitated, secured with a set of industrial zip ties. And standing guard over them was a woman in a simple security guard's uniform, the borrowed pistol now resting safely on a nearby crate. She was wiping concrete dust from her hands onto her trousers, her expression as calm as if she had just finished a routine patrol. The crisis was over. The battle was won. In the days that followed, the story of the quiet night guard spread like wildfire through the hushed halls of Thorn Industries. Mark Renshaw was quietly and unceremoniously dismissed, his book of protocols unable to save him from the consequences of his own arrogance. The official reports were sanitized for the public, but within the company, the truth was known. Harrison Thorn summoned Anya to his office on the 80th floor. The shattered window had been replaced, but the room felt different now, less a seat of power and more a place of quiet reflection. He didn't ask her to sit. Instead, he walked around from behind his massive desk and stood before her, not as a boss to a subordinate, but as one human being to another. "I've read your file," he said softly. "The real one. The military one. Honorable discharge after your last tour. The citations for valor. They barely tell the story." He paused, his eyes filled with a profound and newly earned respect. "I owe you my life. But this company owes you more than that. We were operating under an illusion of safety. We had systems, but we had no true security. We had uniforms, but we had no guardians." He wasn't offering her a raise or a promotion. He was offering her a revolution. "I am dissolving the entire corporate security division," he continued. "I want you to build a new one from the ground up. Not based on binders and checklists, but on instinct, intelligence, and genuine preparedness. Your principles. Your command. Whatever you need, you will have it." Anya listened, her face unreadable. She had spent years trying to be invisible, to quiet the warrior within her. Now the world was asking her to step back into the light, not as a weapon of war, but as a shield. She looked past Thorn, out the new, unblemished window at the city below. She had found a new battlefield, a new mission. She gave a single, decisive nod. Her war was not over. A new one was just beginning. So the next time you walk past that person in the corner, the one whose name you don't know, take a second look. See beyond the uniform, beyond the task they are performing. See the person. Because the quietest people often carry the heaviest burdens and possess the greatest strength. The person you overlook every single day might just be the one who holds the key to saving you. Remind someone of their hidden strength today. Share this story if you believe that true value is measured not by the title on a name tag, but by the courage and character held deep within the human heart.